I was the same kind of philosophy as Joe Gibbs had. Is it's better to go for the dream and not get it, opposed to always wondering what if. Because I knew in my mind I could do the job. Just like I know I can run an NFL team and build the greatest dynasty in the history of the National Football League, as you and I are sitting here talking, I know that for a fact.
Everybody, welcome back to another brand new episode of Ethan and Mike, episode 34. Today, unfortunately, we do not have Mike. He was a little bit busy today. But however, we do have a great guest for you guys today. We have a special guest. He was an aspiring football man just as us, who liked to work hard to become a Jet scout, who worked with Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. And he will be the future general manager of the Washington Football. I'm calling it right now. Daniel Kelly, how you doing?
Hey, man, I love the intro and I love the position you put me in. Hey, I'm doing well, thank you. I can't wait to step into that podium and rock the world and light up the phone lines, as they say in the sports shows.
Yeah, man. Like yesterday, I just saw that on Twitter. You mentioned that if you were the general manager, you would get Tim Tebow as your quarterback, which was interesting.
Absolutely. Tim Tebow's my guy. Ever since I first saw him come out as at the University of Florida, I just, there was something about him that just resonated with me through and through, and loved him coming out. Of course, he was drafted by Belichick's protege, Josh McDaniels. And of course, he came off the bench. The Broncos were all but dead that season with Kyle Orton, had him at 1-4, and he led them all the way to the playoffs that year, and did the impossible and made everybody around him better. And of course, then John Elway runs him out of town. He says, "Nope, Denver's my town," says John Elway, and he runs him out of town and goes to the Jets. The Jets ride him on the bench. Every chance he's gotten from the time this is a guy. Tim Tebow's a guy who wasn't even supposed to be born. His mother's doctor said she should got an abortion. He's kind of fought the odds all along, and he's a guy that's won everywhere he's been. In high school, he wins a state championship as a homeschool kid. In college, he wins a national championship for the Florida Gators. In the NFL, he takes his team all the way to the playoffs. He got a chance to get in the game when he went to the New England Patriots and the Philadelphia Eagles, and he won there in the preseasons. This guy has it. And then what does he do for fun? He goes and plays baseball for the first time in 10, 15 years. He plays for the Mets.
Yeah.
I had a chance to ride in an airplane with Lee Steinberg, if you know that name, and all, the super agent. He's a guy that is revered as probably the best sports agent in NFL history. He's, of course, Patrick Mahomes' agent to this day. And he's somebody that I had a chance back in 2012. I went to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama as a special guest. And I told my wife at the time, I said, she says, "You want me to get you assigned seats on the airplane or just random?" I said, "Random." I said, "I just want to see who I end up sitting next to." And I ended up sitting next to Lee Steinberg, the guy they modeled the movie Jerry Maguire after. It was incredible, and I had a chance to, he was kind of down on his luck at the time. He was coming back as an agent, and he was in the mood to talk, and I talked to Mr. Steinberg for a while, and, he told me, because, back when I was a kid growing up, he always had his arms around the top, 1, 2, 3, probably quarterbacks in the entire draft on ESPN. And so I was sitting there talking with him, and he says, "You know what, Dan?" He says, "Quarterbacks are like a fine wine." He said they take time to develop, and a lot of times teams don't have the patience to develop quarterbacks, and they get impatient with them. But they're like a fine wine, and I've never forgotten that. And if I get the chance in 2017, I actually went for the general manager's job with the Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
And in that proposal, 166-page revolutionary proposal filled with ideas the National Football League has never seen before, I recommended to the owner, Mr. Haslam, that we bring Tebow in as my franchise starting quarterback of the team. So absolutely, Ethan, if I get that chance, I'm going to rock the world. I'm going to step up to the podium, and that's going to be one of my very first announcements is Tim Tebow is going to be my franchise starting quarterback.
I know you're going to make Skip Bayless happy on the morning shows. I can tell you that. You'll definitely make him happy for sure. You'll definitely make his day.
I can't wait. I wrote an article in 2014 for Touchdown Europe calling Tim Tebow a future Hall of Fame quarterback, and I plan to make good on that article as soon as I get the opportunity to pull the trigger in the NFL.
Okay, let's see if that happens before Tim Tebow's age catch up to him.
Absolutely. Hey, he's got time. Let me look at Brady. I mean, he's got time. He's only about 30, 31 now. He's still got another 10, 15 years ahead of him. He's like Brady.
Oh yeah, for certain. Which we'll have another question for your general manager perspective. But I just want to take a rewind back to the 1983. So you're in your living room, right? You're watching the Vikings taking on the Redskins at their RBG Stadium. Tell me what goes through your mind that day, how you became a Redskins fan, or how I call it the football team now.
Yeah, absolutely. That's okay. We don't have to be politically correct unless you want to be. I'm not, but no, it's something where you're right. You're right, Ethan. I was in my parents' living room, and it was just everything that's happened in my life with football has been something that has come at me out of the blue, and it's not been something of my own doing. And I was 8 years old, and my parents had this game on, and I was glued to the TV. It was love at first sight. It was like how people describe people in a relationship, how it's love at first sight. It was like a magnet to refrigerator. I'm 8 years old, and everything inside my body gravitated towards the screen and towards the Washington Redskins. The team, the colors, the stadium, the stands, everything about them. The Hogs, the offensive line, John Riggins, who became my favorite player of all time at running back, Joe Theismann, and most of all, Coach Gibbs. Joe Gibbs, who's been the greatest influence in my entire life, it would turn out to be. And so I was just gravitated towards the TV, and I just 2 weeks later the Redskins win the Super Bowl against what are you wearing there?
Yeah, the good old Miami Dolphins. I know the Redskins did beat Miami that year, which I know you have bragging rights about that one.
That's okay. That's okay. You got breaking rates about the year I was born in '73. You guys won that one.
Oh yeah, we won. Got our undefeated season, so we got that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Matter of fact, that was the day I was probably conceived. I did the math. My mom's birthday is on January 14th, 1973. I was born October 11th, 1973. So if you do the math, it almost works out perfectly. So I was probably conceived the day the Redskins were in the first Super Bowl against your Dolphins.
Wow.
But yeah, it was love, like I said, it was love at first sight. And the Redskins won that Super Bowl. Of course, the game comes down to 4th and 1. Of course, the second year head coach Joe Gibbs, nobody really knew a lot about him at the time. But of course, playing against the legendary Don Shula on the other sidelines, and most coaches, Ethan, our listeners, would have punted in that situation, but not Joe Gibbs. Joe Gibbs turns to his legendary offensive line coach, God rest his soul. He just recently passed away, Joe Bugle, and he says, "Bugs, what do you think? What do you think, Bugs?" He goes, "What do you think? 4th and 1." He goes, he says, "Coach," he says, "I like our chances against John Riggins, the chances against any safety in the NFL." And of course, it's 4th and 1. The play call is 70 chip, hand off to John Riggins left side, takes Don McNeil, the defensive back, for a ride, and off to the races. 43 yards, and Super Bowl glory is ahead of him. And I never looked back. I mean, I became such a fanatic so fast. It was amazing. Like that next year, the Redskins played the Raiders, lost the Super Bowl 18 to the Raiders 38-9. And how hard did I take the game? Well, I threw up after the game at 9 years old, and I missed 3 days of school. So I was heartbroken. Matter of fact, that's the way I was kind of all throughout my upbringing from that point forward. If the Redskins won, I was elated, and if they lost, my whole dinner was ruined. Half of my week was ruined, and my whole sun just rose and set on the Washington Redskins. My whole bedroom was a Redskins shrine. I had a chance to, when I was 13 years old, my parents got me my first ticket to a Redskins game against the Minnesota Vikings when the Redskins came to town on Christmas night. They flew into town, 1987, and they were going to play the next day on December 26, 87 at the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome, what was the Hubert H. Humphrey Metrodome in Minneapolis. And, my parents, it's Christmas night, it's snowing a little bit outside Minnesota, and my parents and grandparents are playing a card game out in the living room. And an idea came to mind that, maybe I should, start again. The idea is just coming to my mind. Maybe I should start calling all the team hotels and see if I can get, some of the players on the phone.
Yeah.
So I called all the hotels in Minneapolis and St. Paul, and one of the last ones was a Bloomington Marriott by the airport. And I called, and the woman answered the phone. She goes, "Good evening, Bloomington Marriott. How may I direct your call?" And I said, "Dexter Manley's room, please." And she goes, "One moment, please." And the phone started to ring. Dexter Manley, and for those of you who don't know who Dexter Manley was, he was one of the most revered defensive players in the 1980s. Him and Lawrence Taylor were probably the two best pass rushers for sure in the NFL at the time. So it'd be like any young boy in the country. Imagine a young boy calling and saying, "Can I talk to Deion Sanders?" And the phone starts to ring, or "And let me talk to Ray Lewis," and the phone starts to ring. That's in the modern day, that's what the equivalency would be to a Dexter Manley answering the phone. So he answers the phone, and I said, "Hello, Dexter." He goes, "Yes, who's this?" I said, "Hi, I'm Dan Kelly. I'm one of your biggest fans." And he says, "Hey, how you doing?" And he was in the mood to talk, and it was incredible. Just like the posters hanging up in your room there behind you, Ethan. I had a Dexter Manley room poster in my room, and I started telling Dexter about how his poster hung up on my bedroom wall. And he said he started telling me stories about what it was like to sack the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, which I loved. And
Oh yeah. Yeah, especially the rivalry right there, the Redskins and the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah. Danny White was the quarterback at the time, and he was telling me what it was like to rock Danny White's world with the quarterback of the Cowboys. And it was just great. It was a great conversation like we're having right now, you and I. And, it was amazing. And he says, "Well, what do you think, Dan?" He goes, "What do you think about if I invite you out to the team hotel tomorrow morning? I can meet you and sign some stuff and take pictures with you, and I would introduce you to all the guys on the team. Would you like that?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Would I like that? Are you kidding?" So I ran on my parents, they're playing this card game. My grandparents, I'm like, "Dexter Manley invited me to the team hotel." And they're like, so the next morning they take me out there the day after Christmas, 1987. They take me to the hotel. My parents are dressed in all their Vikings gear. I'm dressed in war paint. I got my Redskins hat on, Redskins jersey.
You're full out.
All out. And walk into the hotel lobby. And sure enough, there's Dexter Manley sitting there waiting for me, just like you said he would be, in the hotel lobby. And he signed some stuff for me, took pictures with me. And then he, took me back, introduced me to all the players on the team, which was incredible. And, of course, the Redskins go on that season to win Super Bowl 22. Doug Williams, of course, in the San Diego Jack Murphy Stadium, 42-10 against the Denver Broncos and John Elway. And, from there, it's even more off to the races. If I wasn't thinking, Ethan, about Redskins football, I was talking about Redskins football. If I wasn't talking about Redskins football, I was studying about Redskins football. If I wasn't studying about Redskins football, I was dreaming about Redskins football. I mean, my life was literally Redskins around the clock, 365. And so I even had a countdown chart on my bedroom wall to how many days the next Redskins game in the offseason. I'd run around school and be like, "Only 221 days the next Redskins game," and all the kids are like, they thought I was crazy. And are
you crazy? I thought we were talking about the Vikings here.
No, not Vikings. No.
They'd be like, "Aren't you going to start talking about the Vikings?"
No. I wasn't a Vikings. I never even had a second favorite team, not even when I worked at the Jets. I was always Redskins through and through, and blood burgundy and gold from the time I was, like I said, from the time I was 8. And so I wanted to play, but of course I never got big enough to play. No matter how many large pizzas I ever ate, I never got big enough to play. And so I started to have I got a little bit in the coaching, and I actually designed at 17 years old. I designed a play for the Redskins head coach Joe Gibbs and sent it out to Washington from Minnesota. And Coach Gibbs, of course, who's now in the Hall of Fame for the Redskins, the only coach in NFL history to win 3 different Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks, actually used my play that I sent to him, and it worked for a touchdown in a preseason game against the Atlanta Falcons in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. And of course, I have a letter, to that effect in my book, Whatever It Takes. I have the letter from Joe Gibbs right in here talking about. Matter of fact, here I am with Joe Gibbs in the book.
I remember seeing that photo right there the other day.
Yeah, there it is. Yep, there it is with Coach Gibbs. And so I got a letter, all the letters and pictures and everything are in my book, Whatever It Takes, like I said, throughout the years. It was an incredible upbringing where I got a chance to get really up close and personal with a lot of the players on the team, a lot of the coaches. They would write back to me every year. Star defensive end Charles Mann on the Redskins actually sent me a letter right after the NFC Championship game in 1991, right before the Redskins played in Minneapolis for Super Bowl 26, which my grandmother gave me a ticket to the game for my high school graduation. I had a chance to sit corner end zone in the Super Bowl in the Buffalo end zone. So I was sitting there with all my Redskins stuff on with about 35,000 Buffalo fans screaming and yelling at me for the first half. It was pretty intense, but that's where I learned to take on the opposition, right? So they're like Buffalo, and it's just like these grown men are looking at me. I'm 18 years old. They're looking at me like they're gonna kill me. The veins are coming out of their neck and everything, and I'm just sitting with pointing my big number 1 Redskins finger, like, "Let's go, baby, let's go." And the people are like, "Ah!"
Like once a game day, the my voice changes a lot. I started going deeply into the game.
Oh, yeah,
I go
absolutely.
right into there.
Absolutely, I was hoarse by halftime. And the funniest part about that game is the Redskins, of course, won Super Bowl 26 that day, 37-24 against Buffalo. The funny thing is at halftime, I was sitting in the Buffalo end zone, right by the end zone, and this guy has a Buffalo Bills sweatshirt on, and he takes the sweatshirt off. He's got a Redskins T-shirt on underneath, and I'm like, hey, buddy, what are you doing? And he's like, hey, I want to be on the winning side. And that story is my book too. I mean, it was amazing. The Redskins won the Super Bowl. I got a chance to see the Redskins win the World Championship right in my backyard in Minnesota. It was an incredible experience, and of course, I wanted to get into football, like I said. And so for my 17th birthday, a year prior to that, even my parents had given me a book called Secrets of NFL Scout, written by Tony Rizzano, the legendary scouting director with the San Francisco 49ers, of course, helped construct the whole dynasty with the 49ers back in the 1980s. And so I just couldn't put the book down. That's why I wanted to be was an NFL scout. So I ended up sending Charlie Casserly, who was then the general manager of the Washington Redskins. I ended up sending him a 75-page draft report in 1992 draft. The year Desmond Howard came out with the Heisman pose, right?
Yeah.
From Michigan. And, he wrote back and said, you're still too young. Check back with us after your first year of college. But, that's all I wanted to do. I barely passed through high school. I ended up failing out of a small community college. I did play 1 year of high school football. I was so bad at playing football. I hope our listeners catch this. I was so bad at playing football that I actually was the only kid on my entire high school football team not to get enough playing time to earn a letter. That's how bad I was. I mean, I played left bench. I was terrible at playing, but I had this insatiable, burning desire within me to be in the NFL. And so I started pursuing the scouting. And that's kind of like the beginnings. And then before you knew it, I was working at Allstate Insurance, and I had a chance to actually intern with Tony Dungy of the Minnesota Vikings when I was 21 years old.
Yeah, which that's the most amazing thing because Tony Dungy. Because I remember you were at a draft party in Minnesota. You went there. You selected this number 2 pick, which they did eventually pick that guy. And then when you talked to Tony Dungy, it was like a good conversation. That was like the first opportunity you got, and you went to work with the Vikings for 6 months with Tony Dungy until he went to Tampa when he coached at Tampa.
Absolutely, Ethan.
Which then the Jets got interest in you. How do you and the Jets got together with the scouting? I want to know about that.
Well, that was another part. It was interesting about me because you're right, Ethan. Coach Dungy leaves for Tampa. I left back for the real world. Selling Kirby vacuum cleaners door to door, kind of like back to reality type of thing. I went through a tremendously hard time in my personal life at that time. My first fiance broke up with me. Ended up getting evicted from my apartment. My vehicle got repossessed. Even spent a day in jail for having a suspended driver's license. I didn't pay for my speeding tickets. I was going to a different bar pretty much every single night trying to find the answers of life at the bottom of every bottle I could find. And I was really going through a rough time, sleeping on buddies' couches. And but this dream was still there in the back of my head, and I ended up getting married to another woman named Ruth, and a while after that, and I found myself working at Bank America Mortgage as a loan officer, and I never had any mortgage experience, but I was at this job, and I started thinking one day, Ethan, to our listeners, and maybe somebody out there can relate to this. I sat there and I said to myself, what am I doing here? My dream is to be an NFL scout. It goes back to that Joe Gibbs play. And Joe Gibbs, again, is the greatest influence in my life. It goes back to that Joe Gibbs decision in Super Bowl 17 when most young coaches would have punted the ball and kind of played it safe and played the field position game, but he went for it. And so I was the same kind of philosophy as Joe Gibbs had, is it's better to go for the dream and not get it, opposed to always wondering what if. Because I knew in my mind I could do the job. Just like I know I can run an NFL team and build the greatest dynasty in the history of the National Football League, as you and I are sitting here talking, I know that for a fact. So I knew I could do it, but I felt compelled to go for it. You know what I mean? It was just like wave the punter off the field, let's get rid of him and let's go. So I'm sitting there in this meeting, and I started thinking, well, I have a little satellite dish, I can record the games. I stopped at Target on the way home, bought some pens and paper and a bunch of folders, and I called DirecTV and subscribed to their college football programming, and I went for it. I went home and started writing reports on every senior I could get my hands on these games. And, that turned out to be a 7-month journey where I worked full time at the bank during the day, moonlight as a scout at night. And I ended up writing a 350-page self-published 1998 NFL draft report that was 350 pages that served as my resume, right?
Yeah.
And I paid another $1,300 on credit to have 3 copies of this book sent out personalized, including my handwritten notes to prove I actually did the reports to every general manager, head coach, and director of player personnel in the NFL. My entire Chevy Blazer is filled with these boxes. And I sent them out with no guarantees. And I want our listeners to really grab a hold of that. There's no guarantees. I put everything. I put all of my time, all of myself, all of my money, all of everything into this with absolutely zero guarantees that it was going to happen, and sent this thing out a way to see what the response would be.
Yeah, because I've seen those photos where there are stacks like this. It's like you're taking out boxes out of a store to put in the truck. I saw that. I was like, wow. You went full on out. And it shows that you really studied the plays during that time in NFL draft. I was like, wow.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the picture, right? Here's the picture on there. There's you're alluding to with all in my book, whatever it takes, with all the boxes and everything. I mean, literally,
Man,
I mean, my
it was
entire
stacks full of stacks right there for all 32 teams.
All 32 teams. And I realized that the importance, again, I can't tell you, Ethan, how many people have approached me over the years and said, what do I have to do to get in the NFL? I want to be in the NFL. And one of the keys to getting in the NFL is finding a way to do something different than everybody else is doing it. Finding a way to create separation. What I mean by that is, everybody sends in a formal resume. They go in the trash. Okay, I've been there. I've seen them go in the trash. They keep it on file. That means it goes in the trash.
Yeah.
So if you're going to send in a resume, at the very least, if everybody else is sending in white paper, you should send yours in yellow paper, in a yellow envelope. If everybody else is sending their stuff in April, you send your stuff off in November. Do something different to separate yourself, create separation. And that's one of the things that helped me get into the NFL, was because when a box shows up that's about 7 or 8 pounds and it says, "Attention, Bill Parcells" on the box, they're not going to throw that away. No, they hand it to him, and that's how Bill Parcells knows my book in the first place with the Jets. But again, there was no guarantees. I put everything I had into this thing, and just kind of sat back and waited to see what would happen. And then, of course, the first team to call was the New Orleans Saints. That fell through, which was heartbreaking. And then, of course, the call from the Jets game, and they flew me out for an amazing 2-day marathon interview process where I interviewed everybody on the staff. And my interview actually came down to me sitting across the table from Bill Belichick, from 2 chairs, just like you see on TV. He was sitting right next to me, and he stared me right in the eyes, and he said, "Dan, what would an opportunity mean to you in the National Football League?" And I stared right back at him without blinking, and I said, "Coach Belichick, sir," I said, "it would mean absolutely everything to me. I will do whatever it takes to succeed." And and we stared at each other, and neither one of us blinked for about 15 seconds. And he said, "Okay." And 2 weeks later, I flew back to Minnesota, and Scott Pioli called, who's Bill Parcells' son-in-law, the pro scouting director at the time with the New York Jets, and they offered me the position just like a player on draft day. And off I went to New York for an amazing 4 years in pro scouting with arguably the best staff in NFL history.
Those are one of those fan moments where you get to be on a team, on a football team, especially for any NFL fan out there. I don't care if it's your favorite team or not. It's a blessing to be on a football team, just helping the organization out, especially in 1998, where you try to help out the Jets in the AFC Championship game against Denver. Because in Denver, you cracked the code a little bit on their first 15 plays, how they normally ran their plays, which Denver went on to win the Super Bowl eventually. But I want to take me back to those plays. What cracked the code there that you try to help the Jets there?
Absolutely, Ethan. That was my defining moment at the Jets, if you will. It was an incredible, again, the ideas just came to my mind to start looking into the Denver Broncos play scripting system that you're talking about, Ethan, because I knew from experience, I knew from growing up even that Bill Walsh, the legendary coach, the West Coast offense, everything with the 49ers, always scripted the first 15 plays of the game, right? And I knew that Mike Shanahan, being a disciple of the Bill Walsh coaching tree, did the same thing. So ideas, this idea came in my mind that there has to be some kind of rhythm, some kind of pattern, some kind of code, some kind of something with these plays. And so I went ahead and got all the Denver Broncos season, tapes out, and I started watching them. And it took me about the better part of about 12 hours to do this project. And I put together an Excel spreadsheet, and I charted the first 15 plays of the first game of the season. And I did the same thing for the second game, and the third game, the fourth game, and the fifth game, all the way to the divisional playoff game, which is where they were at before we faced them in the AFC title game. And I started to notice a pattern that the first game of the regular season started, and I talk about this in my book, Whatever It Takes. The first game started with plays 1 through 15, and the second game started with play number 2 on the list and worked its way back to the top of the list. Game 3 started with play number 3 and worked its way back to the top of the list. Game 4 started with play number 4 on the list and worked its way back to the top of the list. See what I'm saying? The pattern?
Yeah, it's the same
game 5, the fifth play. So, and then starting in game 8, Shanahan, this being Kyle Shanahan's dad, started working the system back up the stairwell exactly in the same manner until they got to the wild card game. Well, the wild card game precisely matched the first regular season game. The divisional playoff game matched exactly the second regular season game. I knew exactly they were going to run the first 15 plays before we played them in the 1998 AFC Championship game. I ran in at about 6 o'clock in the morning. I ran into Eric Mangini's office, who was our defensive backs coach at the time. And I said, Coach Mangini, I know Denver's first 15 plays. He goes, how do you know that? And I just explained it to him, just like I share with you and your audience. And he was like, well, okay, I'll take it with me. We'll take a look at this, right? And sure enough, it turned out that I cracked the first 15 plays, and we were actually ahead by halftime of that game. And really thought that I was going to go to the Super Bowl my first season in the NFL, which would have been even.
That would have been a crazy moment. That would have been something for your book right there, whatever it takes right there.
It was so close.
A first-year scout and make it to the Super Bowl experience.
In Miami, ironically, the game was in Miami, and so I saw your Twitter account too. It said Miami Vice on it. That happened to be my favorite show growing up. I might add.
Yeah, Miami Vice.
Yeah, I used to run around with it. I used to wear all the Don Johnson stuff. I got my grandmother to buy me the pants, and I had like a little toy gun underneath my uncut suit and everything. And I loved Crockett and Tubbs, the sports car he had with the spinning wheels, the music by Jan Hammer, all that stuff. I love the show. So yeah, that was my favorite show growing up. But yeah, it was just it was incredible.
That would be crazy because in that Jets season they had Keyshawn Johnson, Curse Martin, and they had Vinny Testaverde as their offensive line, not offensive line. I mean, their offensive players really that season. They could have got into the Super Bowl, but John Elway snuck in there as usual, 23-10.
This one,
which is remarkable because John Elway during the 80s always got crushed either by the 49ers or by the Redskins.
Yeah.
Which was tough for John Elway, but that would have been something crazy for you for your first year scout and we go to the Super Bowl and winning it. That would have been the story of a lifetime.
It would have been. I told my first wife at the time, I was like, we should just quit and just make the movie now if that happened. It's just, I guess it wasn't the right time. And the crazy thing about it is a couple years later at the Jets, one of my jobs was picking up the players at the airport. We actually brought in Steve Atwater, the Hall of Fame safety, at the time as a free agent. And he had the Super Bowl rock on his finger from the game where, the Broncos beat the Jets. And I was kind of looking at that ring when he was sitting in the passenger seat and we were talking and I was like, oh, wow. I said, that's what that looks like.
So that's what the ring looks like.
Yeah. So real close. But as they say, close only counts in hand grenades and shaving and horseshoes.
Yeah, I feel that. It's one of those moments where you're almost there, but not quite,
Almost. I've had a lot of those moments in my life where it's been just right there. As one of my old bosses used to say, you're this close.
You're just an inch short.
It's like for the first down, and like, Oh, it's just like that short. Like
Yeah, it's like, oh wait, we can't tell, so let's get a no car real quick.
Absolutely.
It's that close. It's that
Uh,
close.
as everyone's saying, they're like, did he make it? Did he make it? They're replaying it like 100 times.
Yeah,
So
it's like
yeah,
first down, first down, first down. Or no,
yeah,
he didn't get it. He didn't get it. He didn't
yeah.
get it.
Wait, there's a red challenge flag on the play.
Bill Belichick.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, close, close. But there's a plan out there for all of us, and it just wasn't in the cards that to win the Super Bowl my first season in the NFL. But it was still an amazing experience to come that close to being in the Super Bowl and having that kind of a season my first year in the league because I'd gone through testicular cancer. I talk about that in my book, Whatever It Takes. And for any young men who are listening, testicular cancer is the most, between the ages of 17 and 24, I guess, common cancer to get. So keep that in mind. Matter of fact, I know someone locally here in Key West, Florida, where I live, and their son right now has just been diagnosed with testicular cancer. And something there's not a lot of knowledge or research out there. I mean, not a lot of knowledge, I should say. I guess there's a lot of research, but young man, make sure you're getting that checked up because I had some sizable swelling down in that region, and I thought it was something stress related or I didn't know what it was. And I went to the doctor and they said, you have testicular cancer. And I went through 2 major surgeries my first season in 1998, the year that we're talking about, Ethan, with the AFC Championship game. Second surgery, I was on the table for 8 hours at Sloan Kettering Hospital, and they did a 12-inch incision with 75 staples to seal me back up from my sternum on down. And they told me I'd probably never be able to have kids even, as well. And it was an incredibly difficult time. They told me I'd probably miss the whole season with the cancer. I actually made it back 3 weeks after my surgery. I just, kind of decided, I'm not opting out. I'm not opting out. You're not keeping me out of this place. But it was an incredible season looking back at it. It was a magical season and a season I'll always remember.
Yeah, 100%. And the last question, I just want to ask this last question. So we're going to bring it back to that general manager talk that we talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to give you a scenario. So let's say you're the general manager of the Washington Redskins, or now we call it football, but I want to say Redskins for your childhood. So I want to say that.
Absolutely.
But if you're the general manager, though, how would you build Haskins around to make him as an elite quarterback he can be and make Washington relevant again in the NFL? I want to ask you that.
Well, what I would do if I was put in a position where I needed to work with Dwayne Haskins, to your point, Ethan, is I would go to a quarterback system that I call the 2 or 3-headed monster quarterback system. It's something that's the 3-head monster situation's never been run before in the NFL. But what that is I would have Haskins under center. I would sign Tebow, and I would put Tebow behind Haskins, and I might even bring in a third type of quarterback like that. The play, in the 2 spots at the running back spots, kind of like a T formation behind Haskins. And what I would do is I believe greatness in the NFL is defined by being different. And when I say that, I'm talking about Bill Walsh with the West Coast offense. I'm talking about Buddy Ryan with the 46, vaunted defense that Chicago ran back in the day. I'm talking about the Wildcat that your Dolphins ran, because Dolphins went from being the worst team in football to being, the greatest turnaround in football history, making the playoffs. Because why? Because they did something different. And so I would do something different. And what I would do is put either 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the game at the same time. And what that would do it would screw up everything. And because right now in the NFL, there's so much of it is so predictable. You go 3 wides, I go nickel. You go 4 wides, I go dime. And it's just like this predictable, mundane chess match that goes on. But when you do something that's completely outside the box, and this is something I proposed to Jimmy Haslam, the owner of the Cleveland Browns, back in 2017, when you do something that's completely outside the box, it's going to create mismatch problems. And because nobody knows quite what, for example, can you imagine Haskins dropping back? He shoots a quick little screen pass out to Tebow, right? And Tebow is like hitting over the left edge, right? Now, Tebow can run or he can pass. What's that cornerback going to do? Is he going to come up and play the run? Well, if he's going to come up and play the run, we're throwing the ball down the field. If he drops back in the coverage, we're going to run the ball, and Tebow's going to take off and run. This is an offense that I proposed to Mark Trestman, who I've known for 25 years. Mark Trestman being the only football coach in football history, has coached 2 different MVPs in 2 different leagues with Rich Gannon in Oakland, Anthony Cavello up with the Montreal Alouettes when they won the Grey Cup up there. I proposed this to him back in I think it was 2012 when he became the head coach of the Chicago Bears, that they should have had Cutler and they put Tebow behind him. because this creates a lot of mismatches. So I would create an offense to answer your question, Ethan. First of all, I would hire a coach that nobody's ever heard of. That basically his name is Kevin Kelly. He's a head coach at Pulaski High School in Arkansas. He's the most cutting edge, most aggressive coach in football. Period. This guy, if you want to beat Bill Belichick, you have to get a more aggressive coach than Belichick. Kevin Kelly is a guy who does not punt. I'm never going to have a punter on my roster. Kevin Kelly doesn't punt either. He goes for an every single fourth down. He statistically has worked out all the analytics to this, and he knows exactly how to do it. Plus, he's incorporated some rugby into his offense. Kevin Kelly is a guy that's on Bill Belichick's radar. Belichick flies him up to Foxborough about once a year. He's been a feature on HBO. If you Google him, Kevin Kelly, Pulaski High in Arkansas, you'll see the guy's all over the place. He's a cutting-edge coach. So what I would do is I'd bring in a coach that's going to run a very complex offense, and what I would do is the offense I would like to run is called Yahtzee. Have you ever played Yahtzee before, Ethan? The board game with the dice?
No, not familiar with it yet.
Yeah, no, it's that kills the punchline. But anyways, it's a dice game. It's a game of chance. And every time you shake the dice, I play with my grandma all the time growing up. It's called Yahtzee, and it's a different dice come out of the cup every time, and it's unpredictable. And that's what I want my offense to be. I want my offense to be completely and utterly unpredictable. I want to wreck the books in Las Vegas. I want to wreck the point spreads. Nobody's going to know what's going to happen from 1 week to the next one, play to the next one. Nobody's going to have any idea. There's going to be no way to advance scout our team because nobody's going to know what we're going to do, who we're going to play. I might even have a rotating quarterback system, a starting quarterback system where I might rotate. Maybe 1 week Haskins will line up behind Tebow and vice versa. I want to make it so unpredictable for people that they're completely off balance. They're back in their heels the whole game, and we control the tempo of the entire game. So I would create an offense for Dwayne Haskins to answer your question, getting back to it, directly. I would create an offense that's revolutionary, never been seen before, that would create so many mismatch problems that nobody would know exactly how to defense against it. And I would also run a lot of different motion. But Joe Gibbs did a lot of different motioning back and forth between different players pre-snap. I would do that as well. And so that's kind of the way I would kind of build things around around Dwayne Haskins, and then give him the best chance possible from there.
Yeah, just like the offense you recommend. I was thinking about like the Army kind of Navy type of offense. Is like it's unpredictable. You never know if they run, you pass, triple option. Might give it a quarterback, be the running back or the fullback. I remember I had to play a team like that in high school. Back in high school in football, and we had to study how to stop that. Either if he's coming here, you gotta go for the running back or the quarterback because you never know if they're gonna flea flick it or not. But I like that. I like that attitude though. I like that attitude. Make it unpredictable for Las Vegas, especially because Las Vegas would be thinking, oh, okay, so the Pats will win that like about 12 points right there, for example, and then all of a sudden your team just goes like 25 points and like you just made someone's day right there. We're betting on that team. You just made someone's day right there.
Absolutely. You're exactly right. Yeah, complete unpredictability is the way to win in the NFL.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like Lamar Jackson, for example, because no one expected him to run the ball a lot, how he did in his first 2 years actually in the NFL, which he got MVP last year, because no one knew how to stop the run, how he kept throwing the tight ends more. Because he's more in throwing tight ends like to Mark Andrews than to his wide receivers more, which is very confusing to a lot of coaches. Like, where does this man come from? It was Joe Flacco the hell. Now it's Lamar Jackson though.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It was interesting because Mark Trestman actually went to Baltimore for a year, was the offensive coordinator there. So, yeah, that's a very interesting point that you make. And I would love the opportunity to put a team together like that because I'm very confident that I can build the greatest team in NFL history if I'm given the chance, and just by doing things like that. And I have a lot of different concepts. I mean, I have 166 pages worth of concepts that if I could sit down with the NFL owner, I would excite him in ways he's never been excited before. And I would show that owner exactly the blueprint of how we would run the table because, I'm a guy that convinced Bill Belichick to hire me, and I know what it takes to run the table in the NFL if given the opportunity. And I would love to do it. I would love the chance. And I got a lot of great people waiting in the wings, and it would be an incredible thing.
Man, I hope you do become a general manager. I would like to see that. I would love to see that.
Thank you. Well, you'll be at the press conference, so get ready.
Hey, I will. Once you do that,
Absolutely.
you gotta let me know. You gotta let me know. I ask you that question.
Absolutely. We'll be laughing about it. This is the kind of stuff that's on NFL film someday. You'll be like, yeah, I had this guy on my podcast. He was talking about all this crazy stuff. And hey, look at him, man. They won 10 Super Bowls.
That'd be something crazy. 10
Yeah,
Super Bowls, man.
that's how
That'd be
that stuff
something.
works. That's how that stuff works.
How life works. You never know what opportunities you get. You have no
Absolutely.
idea.
It all comes down to.
But I would like to thank you for coming on my show, Daniel. Really appreciate it. You guys
You're
can
welcome.
look forward to his book, whatever it takes. You can find it on Amazon. You'll definitely good book to read. I know I loved it. Just reading the articles and all that was a great seeing it. You know, I
I
recommend it to anybody at all. But until then, thank you guys for listening to the Ethan and Mike Sports Show. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and all our major podcasts. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day. We'll see you on episode 35. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Ethan. Thank you to our listeners.